The metal bench was hard and uncomfortable as I sat there, my hands resting quietly on my knees like a scared little bird. Marcus sat far away from me with his fancy lawyer next to him. His suit looked brand new and shiny. He smiled like someone who just won a big game. Maybe he thought he already did. "You won't get anything from me. Not even 1 penny," he whispered loud enough so people nearby could hear him. His words sounded like the same voice he used when he told me I couldn't buy new shoes without asking him first. Or when he said I didn't need my own phone anymore. He looked so happy with himself, like a kid who found the biggest candy bar in the whole store. Jasmine sat in the seats behind Marcus. Her nails were painted bright pink, and she carried a really expensive purse. She leaned forward a little bit with her glossy lips, making a big smile that made my tummy hurt. "That's my baby," she said quietly, her voice sounding sweet like honey but mean like a bee sting. She called him baby the same way I used to call him when I thought our marriage was real. When I thought the man I married was a good person. Patricia, Marcus's mom, sat right next to Jasmine like they were best friends going shopping together. Her silver hair was pulled back tight and her sharp green eyes looked at me like I was trash on the sidewalk. She never liked me from the very first day Marcus brought me home 5 years ago. She always said I wasn't fancy enough for her special son. I didn't have enough money. Didn't know how to act like rich people. Wasn't good enough to be part of the Robinson family. That's what she always told everyone. She shouldn't get anything at all, Patricia said out loud in the quiet courtroom. She smiled when she talked, the same smile she gave me every Thanksgiving when she gave me a cheap gift while giving Jasmine beautiful diamond earrings. Even before Marcus started cheating, Patricia was already trying to get rid of me. My lawyer, Mr. Chen, sat next to me looking through papers. He looked worried and scared, like he knew we were going to lose everything today. Marcus's lawyers were 3 people from the most expensive law office in the whole city. They had big folders full of papers that said I never had a real job, never went to college, and didn't deserve anything but a tiny bit of money each month. They made me sound like a bad person who tricked their nice client. Judge Morrison was a woman who looked about 50 years old. She had sharp eyes and brown and gray hair. People said she was tough but always fair. She didn't smile much and didn't care about expensive clothes or famous lawyers. But even she looked like she was going to say Marcus was right. "Your Honor," Marcus's main lawyer said, standing up with a thick folder in his hands. "My client has been very nice and giving. Mrs. Robinson never had a job, never finished school past high school, and doesn't own anything herself. She lived a comfortable, easy life for 5 years without helping pay for anything. A small amount of money each month is more than fair." I wanted to laugh out loud. Never had a job. I took care of Marcus's whole schedule, planned all his important dinners with his work friends, and did everything to keep our house running smoothly. Never finished school. I had a degree in teaching that I never got to use because Marcus told me I should stay home instead. Doesn't own anything. That was because every time I tried to save money or get my own bank account, Marcus said no and found a reason why I couldn't. But I sat there quietly, acting like the weak, helpless wife everyone expected to see. The wife who didn't understand money or business or how grown-up things worked. I had been pretending to be that person for so long that sometimes I almost forgot who I really was. Marcus turned around to look at me with his dark brown eyes full of happiness. He thought he had beaten me completely. For the last 4 months since I found out about his cheating, he had been getting ready for this exact moment. He moved money around, hid things he owned, and made everything look like it only belonged to him. He thought I was too dumb to notice anything, too scared to fight back against him. Mr. Chen slowly stood up, looking like someone walking into a scary haunted house. "Your Honor, I have one more piece of paper to show you for my client," he said. His voice shook a tiny bit as he reached into his bag and pulled out a white envelope. "Mrs. Robinson has written a letter for the court to read." Marcus's lawyer looked confused and surprised. Nobody told them about any letter. Marcus stopped smiling, looking worried now. Jasmine moved around in her seat, not sitting up so straight and perfect anymore. Patricia's cold green eyes got smaller as she watched Mr. Chen walk toward the judge's desk. Judge Morrison took the envelope and carefully opened it. The whole courtroom was so quiet I could hear the paper making noise as she unfolded the letter. Her face didn't change at first. Then slowly, her eyebrows went up higher and higher. She kept reading for what felt like forever and ever. Marcus's lawyers started whispering to each other really fast. Marcus stared at me, trying to figure out what I could have written that was so important. He still looked sure of himself, but now something else showed in his eyes. Something that looked like being scared. Judge Morrison finished reading and looked up at everyone in the room. Then something amazing happened. She started laughing. Not a small giggle, but a big, real laugh that bounced off all the walls. She laughed so hard she had to put the letter down and take off her glasses to wipe her eyes. "Oh my goodness, this is something special," she said quietly, but everyone could hear her clearly in the silent room. "This is very, very special indeed." The confident smiles disappeared from their faces like someone turned off a light switch. Marcus's face turned white like paper. Jasmine's mouth opened wide. Patricia's icy face cracked, and for the first time in 5 years, she looked really afraid. I felt a tiny smile start to show on my face. Finally, after months of planning and getting ready, it was time for them to learn the real truth. 3 years ago, I thought I had the most perfect marriage in the whole world. Marcus would come home from his job with flowers, kiss me at the front door, and tell me how lucky he felt to have me as his wife. We lived in his family's big beautiful house with tall white pillars and a perfect green lawn. I felt like a princess living in a fairy tale castle. "Maya, you don't need to worry about money at all," Marcus told me one night when we were eating dinner together. He cut his steak very carefully, just like his mom taught him when he was little. "I make enough money for both of us. You should just focus on making our home a nice place to live." I had been working at a small school downtown, helping kids learn to read and write. I loved my job so much. I loved the children, the fun projects, and feeling proud when the kids learn new things. But Marcus had been telling me for many months that I should stop working and stay home. "But I really like teaching," I said, twirling spaghetti on my fork. "And the extra money helps us save for things we want in the future." Marcus put down his knife and looked at me with those dark brown eyes that used to make my heart feel happy. "Sweetie, we don't need your small paycheck. It barely pays for your gas to drive to work and the clothes you wear there. Wouldn't you rather spend your time making our house really nice? Maybe we could start thinking about having a baby soon." The way he said small paycheck made my face feel hot. I made okay money, enough to buy food and pay some bills. But when I looked around our fancy dining room with a sparkly light hanging from the ceiling and the expensive furniture from other countries, I felt tiny and unimportant. Maybe he was right. Maybe my money didn't really matter that much. "I guess I could take a break from teaching," I said quietly. Marcus's smile got really big and bright. "That's my smart girl. You'll be so much happier staying at home, trust me." In just 1 month I had quit my teaching job. Marcus took control of all our money, saying it would be easier if everything came from just one bank account. He gave me a credit card to buy things for the house and told me to ask him if I needed anything else. At first, it felt nice to be taken care of like this. I spent my days decorating our house with pretty things, cooking fancy meals, and helping Marcus get ready for his important business dinners. But slowly, little by little, things started to change in bad ways. The credit card couldn't buy very much, and Marcus asked questions about everything I bought. When I got new curtains for our bedroom, he asked why I didn't talk to him about it first. When I spent $30 at the store buying groceries, he wanted to see every single receipt. "Maya, we need to be more careful about spending money," he said one night, looking at the card bill with a red pen in his hand. "This charge from the ice cream shop. What was that for?" "I met my friend Lisa for ice cream," I said, feeling like a kid in trouble at school. "It was only $5. $5 here, $8 there. It all adds up fast. Maybe you should invite your friends to our house instead. It costs less money that way." I stopped meeting friends for ice cream after that. Then I stopped buying new clothes without asking Marcus first. Then I stopped buying anything that wasn't absolutely necessary for living. Marcus said nice things about how responsible I was being, how understanding I was about our budget. But I noticed he kept buying expensive suits and going out to fancy business lunches that cost more money than I was allowed to spend in a whole week. Patricia made everything even worse than it already was. Marcus's mom came over for dinner every Sunday and always had something mean to say about how I took care of the house. The flowers in the garden weren't planted right. The chicken I cooked didn't taste good enough. My dress was too plain and simple for a Robinson family dinner. "Marcus, honey," she said one Sunday, cutting her food into tiny little pieces. "I saw a lovely girl at the country club yesterday. Jasmine Turner, the one who decorates fancy houses. She comes from such a good family, and her work is absolutely beautiful." Marcus nodded, but I saw something in his face. He looked interested. "I think I've heard about her work. She's supposed to be very talented. You should hire her to fix up the extra bedrooms," Patricia continued, not even looking at me. "They could use someone who really knows what they're doing." I had spent weeks decorating those bedrooms, picking colors and curtains I thought were pretty. But sitting there listening to Patricia talk, I felt like everything I did was wrong and not good enough for their fancy family. "That's a wonderful idea, Mother," Marcus said. "Maya, what do you think about that?" What could I say? That I wanted to keep the rooms I worked so hard on. That hiring someone else made me feel like a failure. "Sure, whatever you think is best," I said with a fake smile that felt like plastic on my face. That's when the strange phone calls started happening. Marcus would walk outside to answer calls, saying they were about his work. He started staying late at the office more and more, coming home after I had already eaten dinner by myself. When I asked about his day, his answers got shorter and less detailed. "How did the big meeting with the Johnson family go today?" I asked one night as he took off his tie. "It went fine," he said, not looking at me at all. "Just the usual boring stuff with clients." But I had seen his planner that morning when he left it on the kitchen table. There was no Johnson meeting written down anywhere. There was a note that said JT 2 p.m. with the name of a restaurant I had never heard of before. I started noticing things I had been ignoring before. Bank papers Marcus quickly put away and hid. Phone calls that stopped suddenly when I walked into the room. A new cologne that smelled different from what he usually wore. Shirts that came back from the cleaners with lipstick stains that weren't the color I wore. One night, while I was putting away his clean clothes, I found a receipt in his pants pocket. It was from an expensive restaurant downtown dated last Thursday. The bill was for 2 people, including champagne and fancy dessert. But last Thursday night, Marcus told me he was working late doing paperwork at his office. My hands shook as I held that receipt. The total cost was more than all the money Marcus gave me for a whole month. Someone had ordered lobster and chocolate cake, foods Marcus always said were too expensive when we looked at menus together. I sat on our bed, staring at that little piece of paper, and felt something break inside my heart. This wasn't about money or work stress or family problems anymore. This was about lies. Big, terrible lies. This was about Marcus living a completely different secret life when he wasn't with me. That night, when Marcus came home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine, I didn't say anything at all. I smiled and asked about his day, and he told me about meetings I now knew never happened. I nodded my head, gave him dinner, and pretended everything was normal and okay. But inside my mind, I was already starting to make a plan to find out the truth. The next morning, I waited for Marcus to leave for work before getting dressed differently than usual. Instead of my normal clothes, I put on dark jeans and a baseball cap pulled down low. I felt like a spy in a movie, except this was my real life falling apart right in front of me. I drove to Marcus's office building downtown and parked my car across the street where I could watch the front entrance. My heart was beating so fast and hard I thought it might explode. What was I doing, following my own husband around like a crazy person? But I had to know what was really happening. At noon, Marcus walked out of the building. He wasn't by himself. A woman with long blonde hair and a red jacket walked right beside him. She was beautiful in a way that made my stomach feel sick. Tall and elegant with perfect posture and expensive clothes. Everything I wasn't and could never be. They got into Marcus's car together, both of them laughing about something funny. The woman put her hand on his arm while they talked, and Marcus smiled at her the exact same way he used to smile at me years ago. I followed them through the city streets, staying far enough back so they wouldn't see my car. They drove to the Garden Terrace, the nice restaurant where Marcus took me for our anniversary 2 years ago. The same restaurant where he told me we couldn't afford to eat there anymore because we needed to save our money. I watched through the big window as they sat at a table in the corner, holding hands across the white tablecloth. The woman had to be Jasmine Turner, the house decorator Patricia had mentioned. She was even more beautiful up close with perfect makeup and jewelry that probably cost more than my car. She touched Marcus's cheek softly with her hand, and he took her hand and kissed it gently. I felt like someone was squeezing my chest really hard with both hands, making it hard to breathe. I stayed in my car for 2 whole hours, just watching them eat and laugh and act like 2 people who were in love. When they finally left the restaurant, Marcus walked her to a shiny silver car parked nearby. He kissed her goodbye, not a quick little kiss, but a real long kiss that lasted so long I had to look away because it hurt too much to watch. That afternoon, Marcus came home at his normal time with a story about a difficult client who was being mean. He complained about how boring and terrible his day had been, how he wished he could have spent it with me instead. I nodded my head, smiled my fake smile, and served him the dinner I had somehow managed to cook even though my whole world was falling apart into pieces. "How was your day, sweetheart?" he asked, cutting his chicken like nothing bad had happened. "It was quiet," I said. "I cleaned out the closets and read my book for a while." "That's my good girl," he said, reaching over to pat my hand like I was a pet dog. "Always keeping yourself busy with useful things." I wanted to scream as loud as I could. I wanted to throw my plate at the wall and ask who Jasmine was and how long this had been going on. But instead, I squeezed his hand back and asked if he wanted some pie for dessert. Over the next few weeks, I became really good at following them around without getting caught. I learned their whole routine and schedule. Lunches together on Mondays and Wednesdays. Afternoon meetings that were actually dinners on Thursdays. Weekend trips Marcus told me were business conferences but were really romantic getaways. They went to art museums, wine tasting events, and expensive stores where Jasmine tried on clothes that cost more than I was allowed to spend in 3 whole months. Marcus bought her jewelry, flowers, and designer purses. He paid for everything with credit cards I had never seen before in my life. The worst part was seeing how happy Marcus looked when he was with her. He laughed more in one afternoon with Jasmine than he had with me in the whole last year. He opened doors for her, pulled out her chair, and looked at her like she was the most interesting person in the entire world. All the things he used to do for me when our marriage was new and real. One Saturday afternoon, I followed them to a fancy golf club outside the city where Patricia was a member. I parked outside the fence and watched as they played tennis together. Patricia was there too, sitting at a table on the patio, clapping her hands when Jasmine hit the ball well. After the game, all 3 of them sat together drinking fancy drinks. Patricia was more animated and happy than I had ever seen her in my whole life, laughing and waving her hands as she talked with Jasmine. She touched Jasmine's arm in a loving way and nodded her head yes at everything Jasmine said. It was crystal clear that Patricia didn't just know about the affair. She was helping it happen and encouraging it. I drove home and sat alone in my empty house, finally understanding the complete truth. This wasn't just about Marcus having an affair and cheating on me. This was about replacing me completely with someone better. Patricia had found someone she thought was good enough for her precious son, and they were all working together like a team to push me out of the family. That night, Marcus came home with scratches on his arms from the tennis game. When I asked what happened, he said he had been moving heavy boxes at work and scraped his arm on a sharp nail. Another lie told so easily that I wondered how many other lies I had believed over all these years. "Marcus," I said carefully, "your mother talked about that house decorator again at dinner last week, Jasmine Turner. Have you thought about hiring her to help with our house?" His face didn't change at all, but I noticed a tiny pause before he answered me. "Oh yeah, I looked into that. But she charges way too much money. Maybe next year when business is doing better. She must be very talented and good at her job to charge that much, I said. I suppose so. I haven't actually met her in person myself. Lie after lie after lie. I nodded, smiled, and pretended to believe every single word. But inside my head I was taking notes and remembering everything. Every made-up story, every fake excuse, every time he looked me straight in the eyes and lied about where he had been and who he was with. 2 months into my secret investigation, I realized something that changed everything in my mind. Marcus wasn't just having an affair and cheating on me. He was planning to leave me for Jasmine, but he wanted to make absolutely sure I got nothing in the divorce. All those talks about money, all the rules about my spending, all the ways he made me depend on him financially. It was all part of a bigger plan. He was going to divorce me and say I had done nothing to help our marriage. He would keep the house, the cars, the money, everything we had. I would be left with absolutely nothing while he started his shiny new life with Jasmine and his mother's happy approval. But Marcus had made one big, huge mistake. He thought I was too weak and too stupid to fight back against him. He had no idea I was watching carefully, learning everything, and planning my own secret strategy to win. As I lay in our bed that night, listening to him sleep peacefully beside me, I made an important decision. If Marcus wanted to play a game about money and lies, I would learn to play that game better than he ever could. The next morning, I waited for Marcus to leave for his meeting with clients, which I knew was really lunch with Jasmine. Then I did something I had never ever done before. I walked into his home office and started looking through all his private papers. Marcus's office was his special private space, the one room in the whole house I was never supposed to clean or go into. He kept it locked when he wasn't home, but I had seen him hide the key under his desk lamp many months ago. My hands were shaking really badly as I turned the key and stepped inside the forbidden room. The office was very neat and organized with filing cabinets along one wall and a big desk covered in important papers. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew I had to start searching somewhere. I began with the desk drawers, carefully going through folders and documents one by one. Most of it was boring business stuff I didn't really understand. Contracts for building projects, letters from clients, bills for materials and supplies. But in the very bottom drawer, I found something really interesting and strange. A folder marked private that had bank statements I had never seen before in my life. Marcus had 4 different bank accounts that I knew absolutely nothing about. The statement showed huge amounts of money moving in and out, way more than I thought his construction business made. There were deposits from companies I had never heard of before, and cash withdrawals that seemed way too big for normal everyday expenses. I took pictures of everything with my phone, being super careful to put every single paper back exactly where I found it. My heart was pounding so fast and so hard I felt dizzy and faint, but I kept going and searching. If Marcus was hiding money from me, I needed to know how much and where it all was. In the big filing cabinet, I found even more surprises that shocked me. There were papers for a company called Robinson Property Group that Marcus had never told me about or mentioned even once. According to the documents, this company owned several buildings around the city. Buildings Marcus had told me belonged to his work clients, not to him. One folder had receipts for expensive things I didn't recognize at all. A fancy watch that cost $10,000. A vacation to Hawaii we never took together. Jewelry from stores I had never been inside. All of these expensive things were bought with money from bank accounts I didn't even know existed. But the most shocking discovery was in a folder that said legal papers on the front. Inside were documents from a lawyer I had never heard of, talking about something called protecting assets and hiding money. The papers talked about moving money to secret bank accounts in other countries and creating fake companies to hide wealth from people who might want to take it, like wives in divorce court. I didn't understand all the complicated grown-up words and legal talk, but I understood enough to know that Marcus was purposely hiding money from me. He was getting ready for something big, and I had a terrible sinking feeling that something was our divorce. I spent 3 whole hours in that office, taking pictures of every document that looked important or suspicious. By the time I heard Marcus's car pulling into our driveway, I had everything locked back up and I was in the kitchen making lunch like nothing unusual had happened at all. "How was your meeting with clients?" I asked sweetly as he kissed me on the cheek. "Very productive and successful," he said, taking off his tie and relaxing. "The Henderson project is moving along faster than we expected." Another complete lie. I had seen his schedule book, and there was no Henderson project anywhere on it. But I smiled, nodded my head, and asked if he wanted a sandwich for lunch. That same afternoon, I did another thing I had never done in my whole life. I called my old friend Sophie Martinez, who worked as an accountant at a big office downtown. We had lost touch after I quit my teaching job, but I really hoped she would still be willing to help me out. "Maya," Sophie said happily when she answered her phone. "It's been so long since we talked. How are you doing?" "I'm okay," I said, trying to keep my voice calm and steady. "Sophie, I really need some advice about some financial papers and documents. Could we maybe meet for coffee soon?" "Of course. Is everything all right? You sound really worried and upset." "I'll explain everything when I see you in person," I promised her. We met at a tiny coffee shop way across town, far away from anywhere Marcus might ever go or see us. Sophie looked exactly the same as always with her curly black hair and her warm, friendly smile. But when I showed her all the photos on my phone, her face turned very serious and concerned. "Maya, where exactly did you get all these documents from?" she asked me, scrolling through all the images really carefully. "They're my husband's business papers. I found them hidden in his private office." Sophie stayed quiet for a really long time, studying each picture with great attention and focus. Finally, she looked up at me with worry showing clearly in her eyes. "Maya, some of these money transactions look very, very suspicious and wrong. This fake company, the secret accounts in other countries, the big cash withdrawals. This looks like something called money laundering, which is a very serious crime." "Money laundering," I repeated, not fully understanding. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means taking money from bad illegal activities and making it look legal and clean by moving it through different accounts and fake companies. It's a crime that can get people sent to prison for many years." My stomach dropped and I felt sick. "Are you completely sure about this?" "I'm not a police detective or investigator, but I've seen enough cases of financial crimes to recognize the warning signs and patterns. Look at this right here," she said, pointing to one of the bank statements on my phone. "Your husband is getting large amounts of cash from companies that don't actually seem to exist anywhere. Then he's moving that money through several different accounts before it ends up in banks in countries that don't ask questions. That's exactly what money laundering looks like." I felt like the whole room was spinning around me really fast. "What should I do now?" "You need to talk to someone who knows about these kinds of crimes and can help you. I know a police detective who investigates financial crimes like this. His name is Detective Harris and he's really good at his job. Do you want me to give you his phone number?" I nodded yes, unable to speak any words. Sophie wrote the detective's information on a napkin and handed it across the table to me. "Maya, please be super careful," she said, reaching over to squeeze my hand tight. "If your husband is really involved in money laundering, this could be dangerous for you. Don't let him know that you've figured anything out about what he's doing." I drove home feeling shocked and confused, the detective's phone number feeling heavy in my pocket. Marcus was in his office when I got back home, probably moving more illegal stolen money around while I cooked dinner for us. I cooked, I cleaned, and I acted completely normal like always. But inside my mind, I was absolutely terrified and scared. That night, as Marcus slept peacefully next to me in our bed, I stared up at the dark ceiling and tried to understand what I had learned. My husband wasn't just cheating on me and planning to leave me with nothing. He was a criminal who had been using our marriage as a cover and disguise for his illegal activities and crimes. But for the very first time in many months, I felt something different inside me besides fear and sadness. Felt anger. Hot burning anger. Marcus had lied to me about absolutely everything in our whole lives together. He had stolen from me, used me, and he was planning to completely destroy my entire life. But now I had important information that could destroy his life instead. Tomorrow I would call Detective Harris and start my fight. Tomorrow I would begin taking back control of my own life. The next morning, I waited nervously for Marcus to leave for his fake work meeting, which I knew was really another lunch date with Jasmine. Then, with shaking hands, I called Detective Harris's number. My hands were trembling so badly I had to dial the numbers 3 times before I got it right. Detective Harris, Financial Crimes Division. A strong voice answered the phone. "Hello," I said, my voice coming out as barely a whisper. "My name is Maya Robinson. Sophie Martinez gave me your number. I think my husband might be doing something really illegal with money." There was a short pause on the other end. "Mrs. Robinson, can you come down to the police station this afternoon? I'd really like to discuss this with you in person where it's safe." 3 hours later, I was sitting in a small office at the police station across from a man in his 40s with kind, gentle eyes and brown and gray hair. Detective Harris had all the photos from my phone printed out and spread across his desk, studying them with a very serious look on his face. "Mrs. Robinson, how long has your husband been doing these financial activities?" he asked me directly. "I honestly don't know," I admitted truthfully. "I only just found all these papers 2 days ago. I had absolutely no idea any of this even existed before then." Detective Harris nodded his head like he understood. "That's very common in cases like this. Husbands and wives often don't know anything about their partner's illegal secret activities." He pointed to one of the bank statements with his finger. "These money transactions show a very clear pattern of money laundering. Your husband is getting large amounts of cash from suspicious sources that we can't identify, and he's running it through many different accounts to hide where it originally came from." "What kind of suspicious sources are we talking about?" I asked nervously. "Based on these huge amounts and the patterns we're seeing, it's likely connected to drug dealing, illegal gambling operations, or other organized criminal activities. Your husband's construction business gives him the perfect cover story to wash dirty money clean by buying and selling buildings and properties. How much time in prison could he get for doing this?" I asked quietly. "Money laundering is a very serious felony crime. Depending on how much money is involved, he could be looking at anywhere from 8 to 15 years in federal prison, plus huge fines and the government taking away everything bought with illegal money." "Everything," I repeated, making sure I heard right. "Everything. The house, the cars, all the bank accounts, all the investments. If they were bought or paid for with laundered money, the government will take them all away." My mind was racing with thoughts. If Marcus went to prison and lost everything, what would happen to me? I would be left with absolutely nothing, just like he had been planning for me anyway. Except now it would be because he was a criminal, not because he had tricked me in divorce court. "Detective Harris," I said slowly and carefully, "what if I helped you build a strong case against him? What if I could get you more evidence and proof?" He leaned back in his chair, looking at my face thoughtfully. "Mrs. Robinson, that would be extremely dangerous for you. If your husband suspected you were investigating him and working against him, he could become violent and try to hurt you. These kinds of criminals don't react well when someone betrays them." "But I'm already in danger, aren't I?" I said firmly. "If he's involved with dangerous criminals, if he's planning to divorce me and leave me completely broke and homeless, I'm not really safe anyway, am I?" Detective Harris was silent for a long moment, thinking hard. "What exactly are you suggesting and proposing?" "I have access to his office, his computer, all his files and documents. I could copy more papers, record his conversations, maybe even find out who he's working with and helping. But I would need police protection to keep me safe. And I would need promises about what happens to me when all this is finally over." "What kind of promises are you asking for?" "I want protection from any criminal charges related to his crimes. I want safety if he tries to hurt me or get revenge. And I want to keep some of the things that were bought with legitimate, honest money from his real construction business, not the criminal money." Detective Harris smiled for the very first time since I had arrived at the station. "Mrs. Robinson, you're thinking like a smart prosecutor. Let me make some important phone calls and see what we can set up and arrange for you." 4 days later, I met with Detective Harris and a government lawyer named Sarah Kim. They had prepared an official cooperation agreement paper that gave me everything I had asked for in exchange for my help in building a strong case against Marcus and putting him in prison. "Mrs. Robinson," Sarah Kim explained carefully, "you'll be working as a secret informant for us. We'll give you tiny recording devices and teach you how to gather evidence safely without getting caught. But you absolutely must understand the serious risks involved. If your husband finds out what you're doing and that you're working with the police, you could be in severe physical danger." "I completely understand the risks," I said, signing all the papers with a hand that didn't shake at all. "When do we start?" For the next 2 whole months, I became a completely different person inside. During the day, I played the role of the obedient, quiet wife, cooking meals, cleaning house, and asking Marcus polite questions about his day. But every single moment he was out of the house, I was working hard like a spy. I put tiny recording devices in his office and inside his car where he couldn't see them. I copied files from his computer onto small thumb drives I could hide easily. I took pictures of every single document I could find, building a complete picture of all his illegal activities and crimes. The evidence was absolutely overwhelming and shocking. Marcus was laundering money for a big drug-dealing organization run by a dangerous man named Vincent, the Viper Salazar. He would take huge cash payments of $30,000 to $70,000, then use his construction company to buy buildings and properties with that dirty money. Later, he would sell those same properties and put the profits into normal legitimate bank accounts, making the drug money look completely clean and legal. But Marcus had gotten too greedy for his own good. Instead of just taking his percentage cut for washing the money, he had been stealing extra cash for himself. He used this stolen money to pay for his affair with Jasmine, buying her expensive presents and taking her on fancy romantic trips. I recorded conversations where Marcus bragged to his criminal partners about how easy it was to fool the police and authorities. I took photographs of secret meetings where he accepted briefcases stuffed full of cash from scary, dangerous-looking men. I documented every transaction, every lie, every single crime he committed. The hardest part of everything was pretending nothing had changed at all. When Marcus came home each night, he would kiss me and tell me stories about his day, making up fake tales about honest, legitimate business. But I knew he had really spent the afternoon with drug dealers and criminals. "You seem different lately," he said one night while we ate dinner together. "More confident somehow." "I like it. I've been reading more books," I said, which was actually true. I had been reading everything I could find about money laundering and financial crimes, learning so many new things. "That's wonderful, honey. Knowledge really is power." If only he knew how much knowledge I had gained, and how I was planning to use that power against him to destroy everything. At the end of 2 months, Detective Harris told me we had collected enough evidence to arrest Marcus and take away all his illegal things. But I asked for just 1 more week. I wanted to be sitting in that divorce courtroom when Marcus thought he had won everything and beaten me completely. I wanted to see the look on his face when he finally realized his perfect plan had been completely destroyed by the wife he thought was too stupid and weak to ever fight back. The trap was perfectly set and ready. Now I just had to wait patiently for Marcus to walk straight into it. I sat in that cold, uncomfortable chair, watching Marcus whisper his cruel, mean words about how I would never get any of his money. Jasmine's sweet voice calling him baby made my skin crawl, but I kept my face blank and emotionless. Patricia's declaration that I didn't deserve 1 single dime should have hurt my feelings deeply, but instead it filled me with satisfaction and happiness. They had absolutely no idea what was about to happen to them. Mr. Chen stood up with shaking hands, pulling out the white envelope that contained 2 months of very careful planning and hard work. "Your Honor, I have one final piece of evidence to submit on behalf of my client. Mrs. Robinson has prepared a letter for this court's consideration." Marcus's confident smile disappeared a little bit. His lawyers looked confused and surprised, whispering fast to each other about evidence they knew nothing about. Jasmine moved uncomfortably in her seat, her perfect posture crumbling. Patricia's cold eyes got narrow and suspicious as she watched the envelope reach Judge Morrison. Judge Morrison carefully opened the envelope and started reading my letter. The courtroom became so silent and quiet you could hear a pin drop. I watched her face as her eyes moved across the pages, seeing the exact moment her expression changed from mild interest to complete shock, and then to something that looked like pure delight and joy. When Judge Morrison finally finished reading, she looked straight at Marcus, then at Jasmine, then at Patricia, and then she started laughing out loud. Not a polite chuckle, but a deep, real laugh that bounced off all the courtroom walls. She laughed so hard she had to take off her glasses and wipe tears from her eyes. "Well, well, well," she said, her voice filling the silent room. "This is quite something special. Mr. Robinson, according to this letter, your wife has been working with detectives from the Financial Crimes Unit for 2 whole months. She has provided extensive detailed evidence of your money laundering operation, including recordings, photographs, and all your financial documents." Marcus jumped up from his chair. "That's impossible. She doesn't know anything." "Sit down immediately, Mr. Robinson," Judge Morrison said sharply and firmly. "According to Detective Harris, you've been laundering money for a drug-dealing organization. You've been stealing funds from your criminal partners and using that stolen money to finance an affair with another woman." Jasmine gasped loudly, putting her hand over her mouth in shock. "Marcus, what is she talking about? This can't be true. The jewelry, the expensive trips, the fancy dinners," the judge continued, reading from my letter. "All paid for with stolen drug money. Miss Turner, you should probably contact a lawyer immediately. Accepting gifts bought with money from criminal activity can make you an accessory to money laundering, which is also a crime." Jasmine's face turned completely white like a ghost. She looked at Marcus with horror and disgust, realizing that everything he had given her was evidence of serious felonies and crimes. "I didn't know anything about this," she whispered in a shaky voice. "I had no idea at all." I stood up slowly, feeling stronger and braver than I had felt in years. "I know exactly what I did, Marcus. I know you're a criminal who used our marriage as a cover for illegal activities. I know you planned to leave me with absolutely nothing. And I know you completely underestimated me and what I could do. For the first time in 5 years, I was finally completely free. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.